Did you know that the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth are not the same thing? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. I was recently doing a live stream where I was talking about why the virgin birth is true and why it's biblical. And this topic came up and I decided I'm going to do a standalone video on it, showing you why the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth are not the same thing. Even though so many Christians out there actually mess this up and mix this up, and I used to be one of them, so I know how easy it is to fall into this misconception, and hopefully today's video will help you just remove any doubt or any confusion you may have had. Most people say the Immaculate Conception today and they are speaking about the virgin birth, but they're actually talking about something completely different. So just in simple terms, the Immaculate Conception doesn't have anything to do with Jesus directly. You may be shocked about that, but I'm just being completely honest. Now, what the Immaculate Conception is this. The Immaculate Conception, just in simple terms, is that Mary was born sinless. And the reason for this is because this way she is not able to pass on a sin nature to Jesus. So when we think about the Immaculate Conception, it really goes back to original sin and to the Garden of Eden. The popular doctrine that in Adam, when Adam and Eve sinned, sin passed now to every human who comes after them. So the logic goes like this. If Mary is a descendant of Adam, which she is, and she has a sin nature, when she gives birth to Jesus, she's going to pass on their sin nature, which obviously cannot happen because Jesus is sinless. Now, obviously, this isn't a video for me to tell you why the Immaculate Conception is true or anything along those lines. I'll leave that to Roman Catholics to do for themselves. But the point is, this is the framework that comes up from a Roman Catholic perspective to have Mary be able to give birth to Jesus and obviously Jesus not be sinless. Now, I'll just highlight two things which you probably will be thinking, and I know a lot of people think when they come to discover what the Immaculate Conception actually is. Number one, well, if Mary is going to be born without sin, without any sort of stain, so she can give birth to Jesus, doesn't it just logically follow that Mary's parents would have to be sinless in order to give birth to a sinless child, Mary, and you get an infinite regression going all the way back to Adam? That is something which is just logically going to follow when you think about it from that perspective. Now, what the Roman Catholics will say is, well, no, God did something special with Mary in order to give birth to Jesus. Now, God is able to do anything he desires. He could do that if he wanted, but one could just say, well, why would he do that and not just go one step further and just say, well, no, I don't need Mary to be sinless. I'm going to miraculously allowed Jesus to be born without sin touching him from Mary. And that second point obviously flowed in from the first point. The first point is, wouldn't it just create an infinite regress? And Roman Catholics would say, well, no, God done something special with Mary. And it flows into the second point, which is, well, God could do something as he was doing, i.e. the virgin birth special, in order to bring Jesus out, which wouldn't necessarily need Mary to be sinless. He could just do that with Jesus directly. And this is why it's interesting that so many people mistake the Immaculate Conception with the virgin birth. Because when you think about the Immaculate Conception and you start thinking to yourself, okay, cool, like, is the Immaculate Conception biblical, or like what biblical grounds do we have? Roman Catholics are going to take you to a certain line of like teaching. Well, they're going to say that Eve was a new version of the Ark from the Old Testament, which was without sin, which was perfect, etc. and stuff like that. The reason I'm saying that is because in contrast to the virgin birth, which has multiple passages directly showing it, that's not exactly the same with the Immaculate Conception. Now, when you think about the virgin birth is obviously, like I said, different from the Immaculate Conception. The virgin birth is the teaching that Mary gave birth to Jesus without having any intercourse with a man. It was totally miraculous. So you read through Matthew chapter 1, for example, you read through Luke chapter 1. Those are the main passages which directly speak about the virgin birth. So in Matthew chapter 1, for example, when Matthew is starting his gospel with genealogy, a family tree going back to Abraham and back to David, when he gets down to Mary, or when he gets down to Joseph, all of the other people before it says, well, look, so-and-so begat so-and-so, so-and-so gave birth to so-and-so. right? A man had a son. A man had a son. When it gets to speaking about Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, it doesn't say Joseph had Jesus like the previous people. It doesn't even say Joseph had Jesus through Mary, as it does with the other examples in the family tree where a woman is mentioned, for example, like Rahab or Bathsheba. It doesn't say that. It does something completely different. It says, and Joseph was the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus. And then obviously Matthew goes into the quotations of Isaiah chapter 7:14 about a virgin giving birth. And also at the same time, there's the whole narrative of Joseph wanting to divorce Mary and an angel coming to tell him that she hasn't committed any sin, don't be afraid to proceed with the marriage, etc. And in Luke, when he's coming from Mary's angle specifically, it's a similar format in regards to you get the narrative of what's actually happening. The angel Gabriel comes to meet Mary and says to her, look, you are blessed and highly favored. God has chosen you specifically, Mary, to give birth to the Messiah, the one that is going to rule and reign forever and ever from the throne of David. And she says, well, look, how is this going to be since I don't know a man? I haven't had any relations. Now, the angel Gabriel doesn't say to Mary at that point, well, obviously, you know, you're betrothed, you're engaged to Joseph. It's just going to be like every other man and woman who are betrothed to eventually go together and tie the knot. He says, he does three things which I think are powerful. Number one, he explains how the Holy Spirit and the power of the highest is going to come upon her and bring forth a miraculous son. Number two, in order to help her have even more confidence, he speaks about something else miraculous which is happening in her family with her cousin Elizabeth, who's 100 miles down south in Judah, and says, look, even your cousin Elizabeth, who was old and was barren, she couldn't have any children, God has visited her and she's going to have a child in her old age. And number three, he says something powerful, which is something we can all take from on any given day in our lives. He says, with God, nothing shall be impossible. So the narrative in Luke is clear and direct. Luke says in one verse 2 times that Mary is a virgin, and then we find out about all of this different stuff. The angel Gabriel is preparing Mary with different things to help her to realize that even if she hasn't known a man, that is not a limit that God can't break through. God can give you a miraculous conception without a man being involved. So the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth are not the same thing. Totally different things for totally different reasons. When you think about like a biblical basis for any of these two scenarios, there's several passages clearly and directly you could go to and be like, okay, yeah, here's the virgin birth. But when it comes to the Immaculate Conception, there's not going to be anything which is directly there saying, okay, cool, this is where it is, or this is why it was necessary, etc. Don't confuse them anymore, because a lot of people, like I said, do confuse them. And if you have any other questions about the Bible that you need help understanding, leave them in the comment section below. I'll record a video and I'll release it soon. God bless, and I'll see you next time.